everybody wonders, why did they quit shooting mortars? And that's what stopped the mortars, because the mortars were they were French 81 millimeter mortars. I was within 15 to 17 feet of 3 of them.
Oh, man.
Then they got Ty and Glen off the rooftop, and that was a pretty contentious thing. I mean, that really affected Tig.
I've heard this.
And
can you describe it?
Yeah, because, and I look at it different than Tig, I think, and a lot of it's because of my faith, I think, because by that time, if it was me up there and that was my body, my spirit, who I am is gone, the Lord. This is just a piece of freaking meat. It's a vessel. I don't want you to freaking sacrifice your life to freaking carry me down when you can just throw my ass off there. I don't, and because that's what they did, is they dropped them off the side of the rooftop, and they landed, and I mean, they were already gone though. It wasn't them. And I know that's hard for a lot of guys to understand, and because Tig saw them hit the ground and hurt him, and that really hit him hard.
Yeah.
And I totally respect that. I mean, the way it affects one person isn't how it affects everybody.
Yeah.
And it was the TF guys, and and we hadn't come back under fire. The sun was starting to come up and all of that. So, the argument could go either way. Why didn't they just try to carry him down? Well, one of the TF guys carried Dave down, and Dave was like 6'3", 6'4", 250 pounds, and he tied him to his back. He made an impromptu harness to carry Dave off, because Dave couldn't climb down. His leg was blown off almost, and in and out of consciousness. So, I kind of understand why they did. Get the hell off the rooftop. Don't sacrifice yourself for me.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
Roan, Glatz. And so then another militia, because the militia had disappeared. The group, they took off. And I didn't know this until I saw the drone, the footage from our cameras after I got out of the hospital 8 weeks later, 2 months later. Those guys had took off, and, everybody wonders, why did they quit shooting mortars? And it's because that militia took off, and I don't know if you could see them flash their lights when at the same time I knew that the mortars were coming in because of the timestamps on the cameras. They flashed their lights and took off, and they headed in the direction that the mortars were coming from. And whether they did that on purpose or because their commander was inside our compound. So did they go doing that because of that, or did they just happen to go that way? I don't know, but that's what stopped the mortars, because the mortars were 81. They were French 81 millimeter mortars. And so to the people out there, an 81 millimeter mortar is about 3¼ inches and has a kill radius, if I'm not mistaken, like 131 feet. So if you're within that 131 feet, you have about a 90% chance of dying. I was within 15 to 17 feet of 3 of them.
Oh, man.
And like I said, the blast went through me. The first one, the blast went through me and killed Ty. And that's where we get in. People are like, well, why him? I don't know. It's not don't you have survivor's guilt? I'm like, why am I supposed to? It's not, and again, it goes back to my faith, is the Lord has a purpose for everything, and it's hard for non-Christians to really understand that, even young Christians sometimes, to understand that, because, and I think I've heard you, initially you had a hatred, or at least to friends that got killed. Why would God let that happen? And it's not that he let it happen or made it happen. It's kind of like that. I just think who am I to question, especially somebody to forgive me and take my sins? Who am I to, I ain't so proud to question that guy, because I know what he's forgiven, done for me. And there's a reason for it. And maybe this is my way of dealing with it, but what about Ty's son or his grandson, or that death, that sacrifice for this country? may have a meaning that we don't even understand a couple generations down the road. You know, I mean, my grandfather had 5 Purple Hearts, and that, why did he get injured and him live? But how did that affect me? That's why I'm as patriotic as I am, and I love this country, is because I come from a history of people who have sacrificed, who have served, and that's just how I look at it. I mean, you know, we all have a purpose, and there's one thing we can't do is we can't get out of dying. And I got asked when we were writing the book you know, weren't you afraid of dying that night? And I'm like, why would I be afraid of dying? And I'm like, one of two things. I knew one of two things was going to happen. I was going to live and come home and be with my family, or I was going to die and go home and be with God. Either one of those is fabulous. And who am I to be so selfish that I think I'm so great I should live? That's up to him, not me.
Yeah.
My job is to serve him and serve the brothers and sisters I work that I'm in a firefight with.
Those are the thoughts you were having up there.
Yeah.
That's incredible, man. It really is touching.
And, you know,
that's some strong faith.
Gotta have
very strong faith.
And I think that's what's allowed me to do all that. I mean, you know, and I look back, I mean, when we talk about suicide, I mean, I've probably investigated 25 suicides as a cop. And all the, you know, the way how I've dealt with kids and listening to all that, being able to take that and hear it and not have a hardened heart from it is because of him. It's given me that grace, that ability to do it. And because I also was asked when we were pitching the book. So the book thing, I was going to write a book on my own at first. And because all the other guys went back to work. And so I was going to write one, but it was going to be a biography about my whole life. And but when I was pitching it, and I actually got an offer for $1 million advance. But before I signed it, I went to the other guys and said, hey, I think this story needs to be told by all of us. We've got a story here, and we need to correct. We need to tell it. We need to tell the truth of what happened, how we lived it, because that's the history is not getting told right now. And so we ended up doing it together. I made a lot less money on it, but it made a whole lot better impact, I think.
Yeah.
But they asked me, they're like, well, don't you hate the people that were trying to kill you? And I'm like, why would I hate them? And they're like, well, they were trying to kill you. I'm like, well, I was trying to kill them too. I'm like, I don't have to hate somebody to kill them. And then I thought how that sounded. I'm like, I can't have hate in my heart doing that job, because that's when killing becomes murder.
Hey everybody, I'm Shawn Ryan. Click here to subscribe to the Shawn Ryan Show YouTube channel for the hottest and most compelling interviews that you will not see anywhere else. I've also made a playlist of all the previous SRS episodes so they're easy to find. You can find that right here.